morning to everyone joining us from the United States, and good afternoon to those of you who are joining us from Europe. Thank you very much for being here with us today. My name is General James Jones, United States Marine Corps retired, and as the chair of the 3Cs programming at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center, I'm delighted to welcome you to day 4 of the Atlantic Council Central Europe Week for a timely discussion on the 3Cs initiative. Over the last few days, we've heard about a host of critical issues impacting Central Europe and the transatlantic alliance, from Central Europe's security contributions through NATO to the importance of energy security and the region's digital potential. These issues are all interconnected and more than the sum of their parts. And our Central European allies recognize this potential. They also recognize that the power of the transatlantic community is most effective when the members of that community act together. So to that end, our allies on NATO's eastern flank fully recognize that it's more likely to happen when they act in unison as a driver of decision and action in our alliance. So it's in this spirit our Central European allies launched the 3Cs initiative in 2015. The purpose of the 3Cs initiative is to accelerate the development of cross-border energy transport and digital infrastructure in the region spanning between the Black Seas and the Adriatic and the Baltic. This is all about completing the vision of a Europe that is undivided, whole, free, prosperous, and secure. It's also about unleashing the power of infrastructure to drive forward economic growth, enhance trade and connectivity, and yes, to strengthen security through robust cross-border logistical networks. 7 years on, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has underscored both the importance and urgency of cross-border connectivity to economic resilience and the traditional military dimensions of security for collective security. Under the ADAPT Latvian chairmanship of the 3Cs in the past year, the initiative took key steps to deepen its relationship with Ukraine. At the 2022 3C Summit and Business Forum in Riga, the initiative made Ukraine a partner country, representing a tangible commitment towards support for Ukraine as it considers reconstruction. However, the work is not done. As we look towards the 2023 Romanian chairmanship of the 3Cs, questions remain on how the initiative can build its official relationship with Ukraine, potentially including welcoming it as a member country, how to continue regional development, and how to attract foreign investment in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, in a moment, we'll hear from Latvian Foreign Minister Edgars Rinkevičs, an old friend of mine, on his country's progress on these goals over the past year, and then from Romanian Foreign Minister Bogdan Orescu, also an old friend of mine, as we consider the year ahead under Romania's chairmanship. Both ministers have been long-standing champions of the 3Cs and have been critical in elevating their respective countries' partnerships with the United States. Minister Rinkevičs served as foreign minister since 2011 and has served as a committed and steadfast transatlanticist during his 11 years of service. Minister Orescu served as the National Security Advisor to Romanian President Iohannis, who is credited as one of the founding fathers of the 3Cs. And the minister was the orchestrator and driver of the highly successful 2018 3C Summit hosted in Romania. We all look forward to hearing from these steadfast supporters to the 3Cs and the transatlantic partnership. And following the comments of the ministers, our fearless 3Cs champion, Ian Brzezinski, will moderate a discussion on the 3Cs and the road to Riga. So now let me welcome you to hear from the ministers and our allies and partners from Latvia and Romania. Thank you very much.
Firstly, let me thank the Atlantic Council for your tireless support of strong Euro-Atlantic cooperation and of the 3Cs initiative since its inception in 2015. In the light of the current volatile geopolitical and economic environment, in times of confrontation, the most important instrument in our hands is solidarity and close cooperation with our transatlantic partners. We see the 3Cs initiative as a solid platform that offers a complementary base for meaningful discussions and practical cooperation. Leaders from the countries between the Baltic, Adriatic, and Black Seas joined forces out of necessity, a need that arose out of our similar historical experience in the region, geographical location, and a common European past. 12 participating states of the 3Cs initiative in many ways are fully integrated into the fabric of Europe and share a common goal to develop infrastructure connectivity and strengthen transatlantic ties. Infrastructure needs on the north-south axis of the EU are still enormous, estimated at around 500 billion euros. Stronger digital, transport, and energy links along this axis are crucial for the cohesion, resilience, and security of the region and beyond. This year's summit in Riga focused on the development of better resilience throughout the region, emphasizing the importance of a closely connected region. Close connection, both on the physical and social level, is of an overwhelming importance in the times when we are forced to face the unjustified, barbaric Russia's war in Europe. In the times when consolidating international unity against aggression is a priority. Russia's war in Ukraine has changed the economic geography of the 3Cs region. Our energy, transport, and digital connectivity now is placed in sharp focus. New sources and capacities for energy are urgently needed across our region, so that we may continue to grow and stay resilient. However, our needs are still manageable compared with the rebuilding that Ukraine will require after this war has ended. Latvia envisages a close partnership between the 3Cs initiative and Ukraine, given that we are neighbors in terms of geographical location and have strong common values. This year's Riga Summit and Business Forum was organized with the aim to link the vision of future connectivity with action. We set the priorities to activate involvement of the United States, involve Ukraine into the processes of the 3Cs initiative, as well as drawing attention to like-minded partners outside the region. Positive results were achieved. US DFC announcements about 300 million investment into the 3Cs investment fund. We hope that more contributions will follow soon to enable sustainable projects in the region. Ukraine became a partner to the initiative, and a strong interest from the United Kingdom and Japan in the initiative evinced during the Riga Summit. I'm delighted that the 3Cs Business Forum in Riga was attended by a large number of companies from the United States, mainly representing the energy sector. We welcome the strong support expressed to the initiative by the AmCham network. Our goal is trusted connectivity achieved in cooperation with investors who share our values and care for our region's needs. Support pledged by the United States for the 3Cs Initiative Investment Fund is very important for our region. It gives us encouragement and should instill confidence in private investors. Now more than ever, it is crucial to develop strong synergies between the public and private sector. Sustainable and trusted connectivity is the key to the door for new opportunities and resilience against confrontations. The 3Cs initiative is not just about boosting the economy of today, but also about building an economy for tomorrow. I am certain that success of the initiative lies in the effective cooperation between countries in the region and continued involvement of strategic partners. I wish our close partner Romania every success in the process of preparations for the next 3Cs Initiative Summit in Bucharest. Together, we have to follow up on what has already been achieved here. Thank you very much.
Distinguished members of the audience, I am delighted to be part of yet another timely and important event organized by the Atlantic Council. Let me use this opportunity to thank you for your continued efforts on the region of the 3Cs, the Black, the Adriatic, and the Baltic Seas, and for your commitment to address the crucial aspects influencing fundamental geopolitical and geoeconomic shifts in Europe. Romania, as you know, is one of the founding members of the 3Cs initiative and the constant promoter of developing regional strategic infrastructure on Europe's north-south axis. We see this axis as the backbone of our current and future plans to boost security and economic development of the region. And this axis must be executed with a robust transatlantic participation, a strong US footprint in our region. The war in Ukraine and all the unfortunate effects of the illegal Russian aggression against Ukraine have emphasized once again the importance of the security infrastructure nexus. The focus on transport, energy, and digital infrastructure in the Three Seas region is critical for strengthening our resilience and consolidating the operating basis of an enduring rules-based international order. Romania is the first of the Three Seas Initiative's member states to host a summit for the second time since the inception of the initiative back in 2016. It is a clear proof of the importance that Romania attaches to the initiative and a strong signal of the continuous support that Bucharest is providing in strategic and practical terms. We are taking over the complex process of organizing the next summit at a critical time. On one hand, there is an even more stringent need to reconfirm the role of the Three Seas Initiative as a mature political platform which can catalyze investments in infrastructure on the north-south axis. On the other hand, there is an urge to reconfigure relations with a geopolitically recalibrated neighborhood. Romania will build on the original aim of the initiative and focus on adapting and reframing key objectives agreed at the first Bucharest summit, which the President of Romania, Mr. Klaus Iohannis, hosted in 2018. Strengthening the cohesion and convergence of the Three Seas region within the European Union and consolidating the transatlantic partnership. Distinguished audience, our two strategic projects within the initiative, Rail to Sea and Via Carpathia, already under development, are now more relevant than ever. We will continue to promote them as a matter of priority. The US plays a crucial role as a strategic partner to the Three Seas Initiative. Strong US involvement is essential in the current strategic environment, and it will contribute to further consolidating the initiative. The financial input of the United States to the implementation of regional connectivity projects is a key enabler of successful strategic connectivity, energy diversification, and the achievement of the initiative itself. It is also a counterweight to investments from other global actors who do not share our values and interests. For the summit in 2023, we will continue to focus on exploring and identifying ways of engaging Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova, and Georgia in projects under the aegis of the Three Seas Initiative. Concrete examples of such projects could be building bridges, interconnecting electricity grids, connecting the Romanian and Georgian shores of the Black Sea by submerged optical fiber and electricity cables, as well as freight ferryboat connections. Romania envisages the extension of the participating partner status granted to Ukraine also to the Republic of Moldova and Georgia. We will also analyze together with our partners other countries' interests for the initiative, and we will continue exploring the possibility to expand the role of the initiative's valued strategic partners such as Germany. Distinguished audience, we attach paramount importance to acting efficiently and stay results-oriented, allowing synergies between the projects within the Three Seas initiatives and the EU's long-term connectivity agenda, instruments supporting the EU's enlargement policy. Given the sense of urgency on the digital pillar, Romania will focus on promoting the further development of digital infrastructure and will pay special attention to the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure. Romania will also concentrate on boosting the Three Seas Initiative Fund, on stimulating private investments, as well as on reiterating the need for all its members to contribute to the fund and to grasp its opportunities. Our main goal is to attract support from international financial institutions, as well as to identify concrete ways for interested like-minded partners such as the United States, Canada, Japan, the United Kingdom, and South Korea to join the fund. While supporting investments in strategic sectors such as digitalization or energy, we are planning to organize a business forum on the occasion of the Three Seas Initiative Summit with wide participation from partners as well as from international financial institutions. At the end, our goal of consolidating the initiative calls for repowering its main instruments and pillars of action. Romania is working on a comprehensive agenda of priorities for 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Got sound? Great. Thank you. My name is Ian Brzezinski. I'm a senior fellow at the Europe Center here at the Atlantic Council. And I want to thank General Jones, Foreign Minister Edgar Zrinkevich, Foreign Minister Bogdan Orescu for kicking off our session from Riga to Bucharest, the Three Seas Initiative, Infrastructure and the Consolidation of Europe. Our three kickoff speakers really hit some important themes when it comes down to the Three Seas Initiative, the power of collaboration, the $500 billion to $1 trillion infrastructure gap between Central Europe and Western Europe, the combined efforts of partners to reach out and support this important initiative, including the DFC's, the United States Development Finance Corporation's $300 million pledge that's still being actualized. The unique dimension of this being a public-private partnership, a new model for regional and global infrastructure development. And then, of course, the deepening relationship between the 3Cs initiative member states, which are all EU member states, and the other Central European states, most importantly, Ukraine. In some ways, in having these two foreign ministers kick off our session, we just witnessed the passing of a baton following a year of Latvian 3Cs leadership, and as we enter a year of Romanian leadership at the helm of this unique and strategically important public-private infrastructure initiative. To discuss the points made this morning by these foreign ministers and General Jones, and to discuss the progress and the future of the 3Cs, we have a fantastic panel. Unfortunately, we don't have Ambassador Georgette Washbacher. For some technical reasons, she's unable to connect with us. But we have absolutely with us a great team. Ambassador Richard Morningstar. He's a founding chairman of the Atlantic Council's Global Energy Center, and he's a board member of the council. He's got a rich resume, serving as U.S. Ambassador to Azerbaijan, U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, U.S. Special Envoy for Eurasian Energy, Special Advisor to the President of the United States on the newly independent states, and the lists go on. In addition to his work at the Atlantic Council, he's been a lecturer at the Kennedy School of Government and other places. And Dick, we're thrilled to have you with us this morning. Also with us is Christian Gaginski, a longtime friend, currently Deputy Chief of Mission here in Washington at the Embassy of Romania. He's been in that capacity since 2015. He's a long-term Foreign Service officer, a Foreign Service at heart, who actually served in Washington years ago in 2000 2004, and rose up in the ranks of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to serve as Director General of Consular Affairs. He also took a stint off before coming from government service, working in the private sector at Ford Motor Company in Bucharest before returning to Washington in his current capacity. Christian, thank you for joining this morning. And we have Dr. Maris Anzans, the director of the Center for Geopolitical Studies in Riga, Latvia. It's a new center, just a year old, but already having profound impact. Maris is also an associate professor at Riga Stratons University. He's a prolific author with over 100 publications addressing the full spectrum of security and defense issues. And as an American, I like to note that he was a visiting Fulbright scholar, not an insignificant achievement, at Johns Hopkins here in Washington for a year. So let me start with Ambassador Morningstar and gonna put on the table kind of maybe a basic question. The 3Cs is a Central European initiative to accelerate the development of cross-border energy, transportation, and digital infrastructure. Why is this relevant to the United States?
Thank you, Ian. It's great to be with you this morning, and I think it goes without saying that Ian, maybe more than anybody else, is responsible for getting the 3Cs initiative up and going, starting with what was called, I think, the North-South Connection or something to that effect at the Atlantic Council, that he started at the Atlantic Council 8 years ago. And he's really the godfather in some ways of this initiative. The 3Cs initiative has always been very important to transatlantic relations, to the U.S. relationship, particularly with Central and Eastern Europe. We've always been of the view as to how important it is to erase the historical legacy with the past with Russia, and to wean the region off of dependence on Russian energy. Obviously, that's become even critically more important today with the situation in Ukraine. Europe can no longer count on Russian gas, and never should count on Russian gas and other forms of Russian energy ever again. So what's happening with the 3Cs initiative is absolutely critical. There's been a lot of progress. There have been LNG terminals, I could go through them. that have already been built, new LNG terminals that are being added now. And it's especially important now to complete the infrastructure necessary to transport energy, again, north and south, east and west, throughout the region. Absolutely critical given the Ukraine situation. It's critical that the countries in the region work together to help Ukraine now. And I can get into specifics, but I think you might want to get into that later, Ian. You mentioned the $300 million contribution to the investment fund. Yes, really important to show the commitment to the United States that's expected to be once and for all finalized after frankly, too long a period of time this January. It's also important as part of the transatlantic aspect of this that American business be very active in the region to help complete that infrastructure. So all of these things are really important. We need to get more gas into the region. Obviously critical at this point. I know I'm of the view, Ian, and I'm not sure you totally agree with it, that Greece be a partner in this, because I think a lot of liquefied natural gas can come through Greece and up into the region through the Greece-Bulgaria interconnector and on into Central Europe. So all of these things are important. It is critical to U.S. interests, and it's critical to the interests of the countries in the region.
Thanks, Dick. Thanks, Ambassador Morningstar. I might add just two kind of points. One thing about 3Cs that's important to underscore, it's all about the completion of Europe. It's all about completing the vision of Europe. It's undivided, whole, free, and secure, and prosperous. And that, of course, is a vision that's incomplete, and you could argue under threat, as demonstrated by Russia's unprovoked, unjustified, and brutal invasion of Ukraine. And infrastructure is a key element of integration and connectivity. And the second point I would make, and you kind of referred to it, is, this is a huge opportunity for not just American business, but international business. We're talking about a region that has 110 million people, $2 trillion in GDP, a high growth rate, and this $500 billion to $1 trillion infrastructure deficit, which means if things are built in the right place, they're going to be used and they're going to be profitable. That's a real opportunity. It's a real geopolitical opportunity, and one with real geopolitical urgency.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Let me turn to Maris from Latvia. And Maris, what distinguished this year's initiative for the 3Cs under Latvian leadership?
Well, thanks for having me here, and greetings from Riga. Well, it's quite snowy outside here. Well, I think this was one of the most formidable years for the initiative, because much was already mentioned by the Latvian minister, and I can only, reiterate the announcement by DFC to invest in the 3Cs initiative. The Ukrainian President Zelensky gave an address during the Riga summit here, and Ukraine received its partner status of this initiative. And we have seen also increased interest from other actors. The ministers of Japan and the United Kingdom took part virtually in the summit in Riga. So we have had also quite a fruitful business forum here. We've seen interest from quite notable international organizations like the IMF, the EIB, OECD, and others. So we feel that this has indeed gained attraction. And what else? Also Google, by the way, announced a grant for digital skills as a part of the 3Cs initiative. And another point, of course, the brutal war in the Ukraine in itself, it underlined that, well, basically there is no more land bridge towards Asia, at least from the Baltic perspective, because Latvia in particular was quite dependent on Russia when it comes to natural gas and also cargo transportation. So now it's all gone. So we have to look towards the north-south corridor, and this initiative is for that reason, well, quite important for Latvia, the Baltic states, and not only.
That's the key point. I think those are important accomplishments this last year. the expansion of international interest by the attendance of a wider set of non-Central European government leaders and international financial institutions. And then, of course, in Riga, there was a dramatic announcement by the DFC, by Scott Nathan, the CEO of the United States International Development Finance Corporation, that they had completed terms of reference in an arrangement between DFC and the 3Cs Fund for this $300 million commitment. And those negotiations, I understand, are ongoing and hopefully getting closer and closer to closure. Let me turn now, looking forward to Christian. Of course, he represents Romania. Christian, could you give us a little bit of sense on and elaborate on some of the priorities that your foreign minister just kind of outlined that will define 3Cs in 2023 as you run up to the 3C Summit and Business Forum, which I think is being aimed for the fall of 2023?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, just want to make sure that you can hear me.
Good sound.
And the connection is good. Okay, thank you. So I would say first that this year, right, we're still into the year of the Riga summit. So this year was really a fantastic year for the initiative for all the reasons that our Latvian colleague has outlined and you, Ian, have wrapped up. And of course we're taking the baton and we're going to have a 2023 that hopefully brings even more achievement and content to the initiative. Because as you said, and fully agree with everything that Ambassador Morningstar has said and you, Ian, this is still, and this is really about completing the vision of a Europe free, whole, and at peace and prosperous. And I would add as a strong, reliable and capable partner of the United States and with the United States, and also of and with the immediate neighbors, including Ukraine and Republic of Moldova and Georgia and the Western Balkans. So there's such a meaningful role that the 3Cs continues to play and will continue to play during this challenging geopolitical and geostrategic times. In terms of how we look forward to 2023, I would highlight perhaps three points that actually came out of the previous summit, as endorsed by the heads of state, and then I think make really a lot of sense. First is that the role of governments, like the executive branches of all the constituencies in the 3Cs, should be elevated, should be leveraged. To what extent, and that goes into the actual implementation of projects. There has been a stage of designing projects, of selecting projects, and we're getting into and we're getting into the implementing phase on many of these projects. So we feel governments should perhaps become more critically involved and make decisions that provide additional incentives for investors to look at these projects across the region. So the role of governments, we think should be leveraged. The connecting with our partners, another critically important piece, and we're hearing, and Foreign Minister Arescu just referenced, not only these two kind of landmark existing projects that Romania and other countries have proposed and endorsed and advanced on, like the Via Carpathia, the big road route connecting north and south, and rail to sea, obviously the rail project. But we're hearing more and more about projects that stretched into and connect more deeply with our partners, with Ukraine, with Georgia. We heard about the undersea cable, with the Republic of Moldova. Most of these are energy related, and obviously for good reasons that we'll continue to talk about. But we're seeing this, and we think there's an important attention that needs to be given to how do we extend those projects into the neighborhood? How do we plug in those countries into the initiative through this kind of projects? And then obviously the third point is the realization of the U.S. investment, as everyone talked about. 2022 was the year of the announcement of the process being almost complete. And there's an expectation that 23 will be the year of really making that investment, and as we all hope and expect, that will really provide a boost of the initiative on the global map of the investing community. So I guess this is in summary just three of the priorities that we will be looking at, and which are consistent with what's been decided in Riga, and consistent with what the 3Cs initiative is all about.
Thanks. Let me turn to one dimension of that energy, and turning back to Ambassador Morningstar. Dick, you talked about the challenge of energy security, and when you look forward and you address how in your response to my first question about how progress has been made to kind of not delinking, but reducing Central European energy dependence on Russian sources of oil and gas. What do you think the 3Cs region should be doing to kind of further that progress in terms of strengthening its energy resilience? What can the 3Cs initiative do more over the coming years to reinforce that progress?
Well, a few things. One, it's absolutely necessary, as has been being discussed, to complete the process, complete the projects, so that energy is flowing through the region and providing satisfactory energy security without any dependence, or without getting any energy at all from Russia. I don't think that the region can count at all on Russian energy at this point. So it's absolutely critical to complete the infrastructure projects and to find the alternative sources of gas, for example. And progress is being made, but it absolutely has to be completed. It's also important that the 3Cs initiative look more and more at the green transition and regional projects that help with respect to the green transition. One thing that I think virtually all of us at the Atlantic Council feel very strongly about is that gas is important, but it's not at odds at all with the green transition, and we also have to double down. We have to double down on that. And the green transition, apart from all of the climate goals, is critical to energy security, because the more green energy, even less potential dependence on outside sources, particularly on Russia. So that's critically important. I also think that the region really needs to, and is already obviously, focusing on Ukraine. And all of the countries in the region have been, just so hugely generous, in every respect in dealing with the Ukraine situation. But there are some very specific energy needs that need to be worked through with Ukraine. Right now, Ukraine is temporarily synchronized with the European grid. That needs to be made permanent. With the Russian attacks that have been horrendous attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, I think the United States, together with countries in the region, have to make sure that equipment gets transferred to Ukraine as quickly as possible to help fix the situation. Transformers, other things that are being destroyed by Russia. We need to get oil into Ukraine, and that can be transited from countries in the region on the Black Sea. I'm sure some of that's already happening. Gas has to continue to go to Ukraine through reverse flow. So I think that that protecting Ukraine from an energy standpoint is also critical, and Moldova as well. Also just critical from a Central European standpoint, and should be considered part of the initiative.
Thanks, Dick. I'm going to push on this issue on Ukraine and turn to Maris and to Christian. I mean, is it time for the three C's to seriously consider perhaps membership for Ukraine? Zelensky made a very impassioned, President Zelensky of Ukraine made a very impassioned speech before the Riga summit saying, this is a European country, his is a European country. Its aspiration is to be fully integrated, both institutionally, but economically. Should three C's be embracing that and transition from Ukraine's partnership relationship to a full membership relationship? Is the time ready for that?
Well, if I may start, on the one hand, we have to take into account that we have to consolidate the current 12 countries, because it's not a secret that some are much more active than others. Some countries in Central Europe might be, so to say, more committed to the initiative. So on the one hand, there's need for further consolidation of the initiative. On the other hand, definitely, the Ukraine and Moldova, both they have place in this initiative, and I'm quite sure that also the future initiatives, especially when it comes to transportation corridors, especially railroad, and also new pipelines, should be constructed and reconstructed with the view of integrating Ukraine and Moldova in this network. So for that reason, I believe, and also Latvia will support the place of Ukraine in this initiative. So this could be, again, an additional way how to integrate Ukraine in the European Union. If not the membership, as we know, Ukraine has received the candidate status of the European Union, but let's be honest, it's still quite far away from the European Union. So this could be, again, a kind of recognition for Ukraine that it has become a part of another initiative, which is consists mostly of the European Union member states.
Let me push on that point and put my good friend Christian on the spot, recognizing, your country is now in the chair of this consensus-based organization, and you're developing your agenda. And it's very clear, Bogdan Orescu, you have talking about the need for a deeper relationship between the three C's in Ukraine. And let me make the case that why not give it membership? When I talk to private capital, their interest in three C's is not really based, as I thought it would be, on the EU membership of the member states. They say, we make our own political risk decisions, and it doesn't really matter if they're in or out of the EU. We'll determine on an individual case the political risk, the economic risk with each project. And by expanding the three C's to a country like Ukraine, one would be actually expanding the opportunities for greenfield projects in the three C's. Is it time for us to move beyond this kind of unwritten requirement? The three C's in order to be a member, a Central European state has to be in the EU. Shouldn't the EU extend membership? Shouldn't three C's extend membership to Ukraine as part of a process to drive forward Ukraine's accession into the EU, if not into other transatlantic organizations? Have the three C's be a leader in the shaping of Europe's geopolitical architecture?
Well, I mean, certainly that makes a lot of sense, but of course it would be up to the leaders in the initiatives, the process that's going on through consensus, as you noted, and there's regular Sherpa meetings and all other kinds of other interaction, and this issue has been actually discussed in Riga, and there was a conclusion at least at that point about the how the initiative refers to Ukraine as a partner. But in the meantime, before that eventual decision may be made, in the meantime, I think what we ought to do is to really build those undisputed strengths into the initiative through these real interconnecting projects, this real infrastructure upgrades on all of them, on digital, on energy, on physical infrastructure, that will really bring the concrete and meaningful benefits to Ukraine as a partner, as a member, as a connecting country, and to the extent that we can advance and I don't know, approve and get into the implementation of projects that connect to Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova and these countries. We should really focus on all of that, and of course, from a practical point of view, everything that Ambassador Morningstar has said in energy, with the kind of input and inflow that goes into Ukraine to assist with its current dramatic energy crisis. Think about the role that the three Cs could play, and I'm pretty sure will play during the times when Ukraine will start its reconstruction process, the economic reconstruction. These will be connectivities. These will be facilities. These will be assets that the three Cs countries could offer, could put to use to the benefit of Ukraine, for the business community, for those companies who will be plugging into those reconstruction projects. So I think we need to be doing all of these, all of the right things to strengthen the initiative at its core, to create those capabilities of leveraged interconnection with Ukraine in particular, with Moldova, and with the other countries, so that becomes really a meaningful and attractive proposition that these countries become closer and closer, more integrated with the initiative at some point.
Dick, if I could ask you, maybe you can elaborate on that theme. Could you envision the three Cs playing an important role as perhaps a driver, a catalyst, or the bringing of a particular expertise and essentially leveraging the power of geography to help facilitate Ukrainian reconstruction? Pastor Morningstar?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't read. I wasn't sure you were asking me that question. I thought you might have been following up with Christian. No, absolutely. I think that there has to be a combined effort by all of us to meet now, and I come back to meeting now, critical Ukrainian energy needs, while also looking at the midterm as far as how to work together on reconstruction, which also raises the point, we have not mentioned at all, or very little, during all of this conversation, the European Union, and we can't ignore Brussels in all of this, and the U.S. And working with the Three Cs initiative, we all have to coordinate with Brussels, which has a lot of resources, which can help with respect to this. But it is absolutely critical we work together on these issues.
Maris, let me turn to you about one of the fundamentally distinguishing features of Three Cs, and that's its effort to mobilize private capital. One thing that's great about Three Cs is it's not an effort to reach out to the West for assistance. It's actually an effort to mobilize the geoeconomic potential of the region, the vibrancy of the region, the economic opportunities of the regions, to attract and mobilize private capital to drive forward infrastructure development in the region. That makes it a unique public-private initiative. But what can be done, in your view, to increase the visibility of the Three Cs and actually the targets that it's aiming for, those financial capitals around the globe, New York, Berlin, Tokyo, London, and others. What should 3Cs be doing to increase the visibility of itself in those markets?
Well, that's a very good point and a very good question, because visibility and awareness is something that this initiative is still lacking beyond the circles of experts and policymakers. And I think the business forum in Riga was a very good example where the stakeholders from different investment banks also came to Riga and also expressed interest in further exploring this initiative. But at the same time, of course, well, it's difficult to direct businesses. So business always will find well, the place where to conduct business. For that sake, well, nothing can be done artificially. But what I see here in Ukraine, the potential that reconstruction in Ukraine, it's not only also linking, you know, reconstruction of Ukraine with the initiative. It's not only to help Ukraine, but that reconstruction of Ukraine can also benefit the 3Cs initiative. Because so far there have been many questions and also critical voices. So is this north-south route viable? So do we need that? You know, isn't that enough to connect the Baltic states only, or the Baltic states with the Visegrad countries? But with Ukraine's large market and the vast amount of investment that is needed for reconstruction, I think that opens many opportunities. That Ukraine should be connected to the West, to Poland, to other countries, and it's quite clear that well, the links with Russia will be severed for quite a foreseeable future.
Let me ask a direct question also back to Ambassador Morningstar. Is it because you've worked these energy markets globally, and when you look at the progress over the 3Cs over the last 7 or so years, do you have any advice regarding what it needs to do to have more of an impact, to generate more awareness, more attractiveness, so to speak, in those financial markets around the world?
Yeah, it's. I think that has been a challenge. For whatever reasons, I don't think international markets have appreciated the potential in the 3Cs countries, and too often I think view the countries not as a whole, which the 3Cs initiative is trying to trying to push, but are looking at smaller the region as smaller individual countries that maybe are not attracting as much interest as in fact they should. So that I think it's absolutely critical that that we get the message out that these are regional projects with a large population in whole, which are very appealing for investment. I think that the $300 million investment that the U.S. hopefully will be finalizing is, you know, it is a signal for that. I think the fact that the region no longer can think about Russian energy in any way at this point should help attract international investment, realizing that other sources of energy and are going to have to get into the region as well as projects within the region. So I think it is a question of messaging, because I think the reality is that it should be appealing for international finance and investment.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, you know, you're talking about a region, 110 million people, $2 trillion in GDP, a growth rate before COVID of about 3% per year, projected out to 2030. It's a region, when you look at it in terms of rates of return on foreign direct investment, the top 6 or the top 7 of them are 3Cs countries, with some of them hitting double-digit figures, which is just absolutely remarkable. When you think about, you know, Western developed country providing rates of return you find in the developing world. But the question is generating awareness out there. And so I'll turn to Christian with an age-old 3Cs question: is this going to be the year that 3Cs establishes a secretariat, so that its efforts are not kind of iterative, going from summit to summit or international conference to international conference, gaps of weeks, if not months, between actions, but creating an office, perhaps in a West European capital or North America, a financial center, in which you have a small staff whose job is really to kind of on a 24/7 basis market the region, its potentials.
It could be, but again, this is something that that the process of consensus must really get through and decide what the better option is. And we all know that there have been discussions around several scenarios, but I think as far as for this year's and for as far as Romania is going to be responsible for pushing the initiative forward, I think we will be doing increasingly more than we've been doing so far up to now to promote this and raise awareness of the initiative and the various projects. And if I may just look at some perhaps key moments that we contemplate between now and the summit that are meant to bring this at the forefront, to bring the initiative at the forefront and engage more with a broader investing community. We're looking at those key moments that are traditionally have been the forum at Davos that's coming in early next year, and then there's Munich Security Conference, and then there's perhaps Brussels Forum and another one or two key events in Europe and beyond where we anticipate that we'll be discussing the three C's in a new in certainly a new light, and that is first, of course, because of its increased strategic relevance in the context of the crisis in Ukraine, but also because of the additional U.S. investment, which many are looking at this as some sort of a game changer. Particularly on the financial and business and investment side of things. So we'll be active in promoting the initiative. We'll be using these key moments that are on the calendar between now and the summit. But I agree, we should be all of us. We should be doing more in promoting and raising this awareness and leveraging the extraordinary arguments that you referenced with economic growth and consolidation of markets and opportunities. These are all strong arguments for investors. We just need to be perhaps more visible and more articulate in pushing them out.
Before I jump into the DFC a little bit more, I'm looking at Dick and Maris. Christian, let me just ask you can you elaborate a little bit on Rail to Sea and Via Carpathia? And I bet you many of our viewers may not be familiar with those two projects are. Could you very briefly kind of tell us what they all are about?
Well, they're certainly all about ensuring a more integrated and effective north-south connectivity.
Both, what are they? Well, one's a highway, one's a railroad.
One's a highway. Yeah, right. Via Carpathia is a highway connecting the north and connecting all through from the Baltic countries to the Black Sea. The Rail to Sea is similar. It's just a rail corridor. They are, not only on the face of it, but there's been a lot of attention and a lot of discussion about how critically important and useful and essential these projects are to create more economic opportunity, to drive increased integration between these countries and the various opportunities that exist in each of those markets, and to also add an important strategic element of essential infrastructure that's needed to support not only the economic and development and prosperity of the region, but also its security posture, increased mobility, integrated connectivity between all these points all across the 3C space from north to south are just inescapable. And that's as a matter of fact, this very vision has been at the core of the initiative when it started in Dubrovnik so many years ago. So we certainly will so to say double down on these projects. Those are complex projects. Those are kind of long-term and intensive in terms of investment projects. But each country has been doing its part. There's various degrees of completion and progress on each of those, both on the road and the rail. But there's key elements to this that add. The road is intended to be a new generation road, right? We're talking about smart infrastructure. There's elements to it that extend the classical infrastructure of just using concrete and draw the line. Similar to rail, to the rail piece. So there's a lot of opportunities for traditional infrastructure businesses, but also the new generation, the new technology, the clean technology that will be added to this project, and frankly drive us into the future.
Those are two projects.
And we will be. I'm sorry. And we will be, as Romania's chairing the initiative, we will be promoting these projects, these two projects in particular, between now and the summit. So there's a fuller appreciation of where we are, what is still needed to be done, and how do you attract and plug in those additional elements that are so important to completing this project.
Great. We have about 1 more minute, and so I'm going to turn to Dick, and if we have, maybe Maris. But on road, rail to sea, and the Via Carpathia, to underscore the significance of these north-south corridors. Today, it takes Central Europeans or anyone traveling in Central Europe to go on a north-south axis 2 to 4 times longer than it does someone in Western Europe to go on a north-south axis in terms of travel. And these 2 north-south corridors of road to rail and the Via Carpathia highway will help ensure that those significantly long, lengthy, burdensome, zigzagging routes will be simplified. That's important for commerce, that's important for connectivity, and it's also important when you think about it for security, because that's where military forces could go up and down. Dick, we have about 1 more minute last, because you mentioned several times the DFC, and that we're approaching, hopefully will be conclusion of negotiations over a $300 million financial instrument for the 3Cs fund. What has been the cost of the 2-year delay in this negotiation, and what's the significance of it when it gets finalized and the money gets released to the 3Cs?
Well, I think the question, frankly, is American credibility and the confidence in the region that America is really behind this initiative. The $300 million pledge was originally made at least 2 years ago, and the fact that it's taken so long, and there are reasons for it. I understand that the change in administration, going through all the legalities, and that had to be dotting the I's and crossing the T's to make this happen. That does take time, but we treated it with such fanfare at the beginning, and then for it not to happen for a couple of years, I think does reasonably raise the question, how committed is the U.S.? And that's why it's so, I think, critically important that it once and for all be finalized from that standpoint, but also going back to your point, Ian, about international investment and finance, to basically tell the world that this region is open for investment, and that the U.S. is behind it, and that it's a safe place to be involved.
Great. Maris, can I ask you for 30 seconds? You want to add to that?
Oh, definitely. We need the United States in this initiative. The U.S. has been, one of the most formidable partners, and with the U.S., I think there is no future for the initiative. So we are very much looking forward for this contribution to the fund.
Thank you. Well, I've got my fingers crossed on that, because that injection of U.S. government dollars into the fund, I think, will be a huge source of risk mitigation in the eyes of the international financial community, and a huge bolster of confidence in it. And I think it can unleash the fund's ability to reach out into private capital significantly. With that, let me thank you all, Ambassador Morningstar, Christian Gaginski, Maris Anzans, for your time this morning and your commitment to the 3 Cs. And now it's my pleasure to transition over to Fran Burwell, Atlantic Council's Distinguished Fellow.
Thank you very much, Ian. It's great to listen to your panel there on the 3 Cs initiative. I want to welcome everyone joining us here today. I'm Fran Burwell. I'm a Distinguished Fellow here at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center and a Senior Director at McClarty Associates. I have the pleasure of welcoming you all to Day 4 of the Atlantic Council's Central Europe Week, which, if you've been watching, know is our annual series highlighting the partnership between the United States and Central Europe, and promoting dialogue on how these partners can work together to face regional and global challenges. For today's Spotlight conversation, I'm honored to be joined by Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency, Her Excellency Vera Jourova. In this position, she deals with a range of really important issues: democracy, rule of law, media pluralism, and disinformation. Previously, she served as the European Commissioner for Justice, Consumers, and Gender Equality, and she's also served as a minister in the government of the country she knows best, the Czech Republic. Vice President Jourova, thank you for joining. It's great to see you again.
Thank you for inviting me.
We don't have long, so I want to jump right in. I do want to encourage our audience, however, to follow along the discussion on Twitter at AC Europe and join the discussion using the hashtag Central Europe Week. Vice President Jourova, first, I would like to understand a bit more about how disinformation works, the phenomenon and the impact, before we talk about what the EU is doing to fight it. Europe has been subject to Russian disinformation for quite some time now. What are the symptoms? How does this work? And are you seeing differences in the types of individuals who are affected, or the different countries that are affected? Are there things you look for?
Yeah, thank you, Francis, for asking me first about the analysis, because normally I have been directly asked about the solutions. I have some for you, or at least I can describe what we try to do against that. Well, disinformation is not new thing. The new thing is the amplification through the digital avenues. In Europe, we saw 3 stages of campaigning using disinformation by our enemies. First wave was mainly visible after the annexation of Crimea. It came from mainly from pro-Kremlin sources. I cannot say that it was organized by Kremlin, but we saw a lot of it coming from Russia, but also some from China and from Iran, from some other places. This campaigning was focused on several member states, especially Central and Eastern Europe. And there was an exception, 2 exceptions in Brexit campaign. There was a lot of it. And we saw that this information had the potential to change the history of the EU. So nothing to underestimate. And the second was the shooting down of the MH17 airplane. So the Dutch society also was overflooded by that. So it was the first stage. Then COVID came. Suddenly we saw that, in fact, the same strategy, the same narratives, the same intensity appeared in all the EU member states with different impact. So to be concrete, we didn't see so much impact in the Scandinavian countries. Maybe not surprisingly, I don't have explanation for that. But where we saw the anti-vaccination campaigns, we saw that they were more or less successful, because big part of the society simply was convinced by those narratives that the vaccines are dangerous, that they are the tools to influence us, or to some chips, and you remember. And then after the Russian war in Ukraine started, of course, we saw with big intensity the Russian propaganda, the war propaganda, and I have to say that we already saw the signs of it last year, because we saw that the percentage of anti-Ukrainian narratives was around 40%. So the Russians were preparing the ground for that. So I am telling you how I see it from the data. There were 3 stages. Now we are in the most serious situation, and I can tell you more about the solutions.
Okay. So let's move to the solutions. Yes.
And you warmed me up. You know, I'm sitting in a coat here because I have horribly cold office.
I hear you have all turned down the thermostats in the building to save energy for Ukraine. So, yes. So I know that the EU, tell us what the EU has been doing as an institution to fight disinformation. And I know you've had a code of practice for disinformation. What is that? I saw recently data was released that showed that companies weren't taking down hate speech as quickly as they had been previously, with a few exceptions. So can you tell us how you're dealing with this, and particularly the code of disinformation?
Yes, I will keep the logic of three stages.
Okay,
we came with the first code of practice against disinformation in 2018. It followed the code of conduct against hate speech and illegal content. So this was not fully new. The question was not whether to remove the content or not, rather how to minimize the impact of disinformation, how to do the fact-checking, how to increase the cooperation between the platforms and professional journalism, rather soft measures. We never saw it as a black and white decision, that Hamlet's question to censor or not to censor. It was never here, because we recognize the priority of the freedom of speech, of course. Then with COVID, we had to come with stronger reaction. So we strengthened the code of practice. And there was one new element in the system. We asked the platforms to remove the dangerous disinformation, dangerous to life and health, and to enable bigger space, or provide bigger space to the health authorities. And it's absolutely exceptional, because we do not want to have anyone to be the arbiter of the truth, to be the authority for the to say the truth. It's not ours. Our concept, but in COVID pandemic, we understood that some authority must be able to deliver the trustworthy information. And that then a Russian war. I have to say that already before the invasion, and here comes my instinct of somebody who lived under Russian occupation 21 years. Yeah, I am from Czechoslovakia, so you can imagine. So already before before the invasion, I came to my colleagues, to the Commission, with the following plan. We are defensive against disinformation. We have to strengthen that. We will never do the propaganda like Russia. So we want to get the facts right. But at the same time, we have to do more against the Russian information war machines. That's why I propose the sanctioning of Russia Today, of Sputnik, several more, and yesterday night we adopted some more so-called media to be added on the sanctions list. We are taking unprecedented steps here because the freedom of speech, well, we want to protect it, but we must not be naive, and we must not let the disinformers to poison our minds and our hearts. You said how it works. Well, there is always a big attack on emotions of people. And you can imagine in this atmosphere, the emotions are very, how to say, excited. There is a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt, a lot of distrust in democratic institutions. So all that is fantastic feeding ground for the success of disinformation. The code of practice has been strengthened. So now we expect all the actors, the platforms, but also advertising industry to stop funding the pages which are used by disinformers. We want the involvement of the media, professional media, fact checkers, and there will be one new thing. In January, we should get the first load of data from the signatories, especially from the platforms, illustrating the situation in all EU member states in 24 languages. And this set of data is impatiently awaited by our member states because they must get some better knowledge of what's happening in that information war and what kind of measures to take. I am not happy when I see the member states preparing the laws against disinformation. I always have the message, the code of practice is here.
Right.
The Digital Services Act is here.
Right.
So let's work together on that.
So let me go back to the sanctioning of Russian media, because for an American audience to close down access, as I understand you've done, to Russia Today and Sputnik and others like that, would be really, I think, probably contrary to our understanding of freedom of speech. Can you say a little bit more about the need to do that? And I understand you're in a wartime framework. So there might be some other past historical examples, but can you say more about the justification for doing that? I think we're all sympathetic to the fact that they were spreading a lot of propaganda. Yeah, we are in the wartime framework, and it doesn't mean at the same time that we started to, undermine the basic principles. If we start to undermine the basic principles, such as the freedom of speech, Putin will be celebrating the first successes on European member states territory. But in Europe, contrary to the American understanding, the freedom of speech was never understood as something which is absolute. Okay. And here comes the decision to sanction first Russia Today, Sputnik, and then several others. We took this decision not only because of the content, because of the obvious spreading of Kremlin war propaganda, obvious lies, like dehumanization of Ukrainians. Okay. We know this from the Holocaust, by the way. Yeah. Yeah,
This
right.
dehuman. So I want to say, when it comes to content, what we speak about, but also the decision was taken because of the ownership of those so-called media, because they are owned by the sanctioned persons
Okay.
or established by the Russian state. And so this is more or less technical aspect, or how to say it. But, you know, our historical experience in Europe is strong and must not be forgotten. And I normally don't like to hear the parallels with the comparisons with the Second World War. I will do it now. In the past, I was thinking a lot about what would happen if Goebbels would have had the social media available. Such an easy ride. Yeah, maybe he would manage that the people would start killing the Jews themselves, that they would not have to transport their. I am now fabulating, but just imagine if Mengele would have had artificial intelligence technique to measure the faces and to decide who is the right race and who has to be sent to death. So in Europe, we have this horrible experience, and that's why we are now cautious, not overcautious. I think that we are simply having proper instinct in taking decisions like that. I believe that if we do not deny and stop the spread of unscrupulous lying,
Right.
endangering the people, if we are passive on that, then we will assist a very trivial way of abuse of freedom of speech, if you understand my construction.
I do. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me ask you about something else. That's a very powerful description of the impact of history, of European history on the decision making. But there's also kind of an ecosystem element, and we only have a few minutes left. But I wanted to ask you about the European Democracy Action Plan, which I understand has more of a media element and voter element, election element, and everything. But does it impact disinformation? Is this about preparing society, strengthening? How does that intersect?
Yeah, well, when we adopted the plan, a European Democracy Action Plan, I heard some voices who said, there is a very good analysis of the threats to democracy, but there is maybe not sufficient action in it. And I agree with the first part, with the positive assessment of the analysis, but I have to say that we were focusing on free and fair elections, especially the political campaigning, which has to be free of hidden manipulation. And we adopted legislation. We adopted the Media Freedom Act, which should strengthen the viability of media.
Right.
I am using strong word here, but we see very strong pressure on media from the political capture, the economic pressure, and we need strong media in Europe. And we adopted the measures to strengthen the fight against disinformation, and the code of practice is part of it. And we will do the assessment of the Democracy Action Plan next year.
Mm-hmm.
The part of it would be something which my boss Ursula von der Leyen called a defense of democracy package, which will also look more into the foreign interference from different parts.
Right.
And you know, one of the new buzzwords we are using in European politics is resilience. And when you realize what we are doing, we try to make European democracy more resilient than it used to be, because it's under much stronger attack now.
So Vice President Jourova, we've come to the end of our time here, but I want to really thank you for this discussion. I think the idea of creating more resilience in democracy is something that both in Europe and in the United States, we have to deal with. And I also want to thank you for helping our audience, especially those who are not in Europe, to understand the European perspective on disinformation and the great work you all are doing in terms of really trying to counter this very difficult phenomenon. So thank you very much for joining
Thank you
us.
very much. Thank you. I really tried to explain our way of thinking, and it
Yes.
also warmed me up. So thank you for the heating.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
To our
you.
audience, I want to thank you all so much for joining us here at Central Europe Week at the Atlantic Council. This has been the last program, and we hope you will continue to spread the word about Central Europe Week and the great programming that I think the organizers have put on. And we look forward to seeing you at future Atlantic Council programs
Me
and
too,
continuing
me
this
too.
discussion on disinformation and other elements. Thank you
Thank
all
you.
very much.
Thank you very much.